Elon Musk, the man who once wanted to send us all to Mars, found himself embroiled in a very earthly controversy. It all started with a tweet, a video of Julius Malema, firebrand leader of South Africa's EFF party, leading a chant of "Kill the Boer, kill the farmer" flashed across Musk's timeline. Musk, never one to shy away from a digital dust-up, hit the retweet button. And just like that, a local South African issue exploded into a global firestorm. Musk didn't stop there. He called out South African President Cyril Ramaphosa for seemingly ignoring the issue. He accused Malema of inciting genocide. And in a move that surprised many, he called for international sanctions against Malema. The internet, as it is wont to do, went absolutely bonkers. The tweet was like a digital Molotov cocktail, igniting a fierce debate about race, history, and the limits of free speech. On one side you had those who saw Malema's words as a dangerous incitement to violence. They applauded Musk for shining a light on what they considered to be hate speech. On the other side were those who viewed Malema's words through the lens of South Africa's brutal past. They argued that Musk, with his limited understanding of the country's history, was out of his depth. To understand this controversy, you need to understand Julius Malema. A former leader of the ANC Youth League, Malema burst onto the political scene with the energy of a human tornado. He quickly established himself as a fierce critic of the ANC, accusing them of abandoning the economic liberation of black South Africans. In 2013, Malema formed the Economic Freedom Fighters, or EFF, a party that promised to shake up the status quo. The EFF, easily identifiable by their signature red overalls and hard-hitting rhetoric, quickly gained a loyal following, particularly among young, disaffected black South Africans. They promised radical economic transformation, including the expropriation of land without compensation. Malema is a master of playing to the crowd. He knows how to tap into the anger and frustration of those who feel left behind. His supporters see him as a fearless champion of the poor and the marginalized. His critics, however, view him as a dangerous populist who is willing to exploit racial tensions for political gain. The "Kill the Boer" chant is not just a random collection of words. It's a phrase deeply intertwined with South Africa's troubled past. During the apartheid era, Boer was a term used to refer to white Afrikaners, the ruling minority that enforced the system of racial segregation. The chant became a rallying cry for those fighting against apartheid. In the heat of the struggle, the chant was a potent symbol of resistance. It represented the anger and frustration of black South Africans who had been subjected to decades of oppression. But like many symbols born out of conflict, it's a phrase loaded with multiple interpretations and a whole lot of baggage. In post-apartheid South Africa, the chant has been a source of constant controversy. Some argue that it should be confined to the history books, a relic of a painful past. They believe that its continued use only serves to inflame racial tensions. Others, however, argue that it remains a powerful expression of the pain and anger that still lingers from the apartheid era. So why would Malema, a man who knows the weight of these words, choose to use them? To understand that, you have to understand the context. South Africa is a country grappling with a legacy of deep inequality. Despite the end of apartheid, the economic playing field is far from level. Land ownership, a key source of wealth and power, remains largely in the hands of the white minority. Malema and the EFF have made land redistribution a cornerstone of their platform. They argue that the land was stolen from black South Africans during colonialism and apartheid, and that it should be returned without compensation. The "Kill the Boer" chant, in this context, is not meant to be taken literally. It's a metaphor, a way of expressing the frustration and anger at the slow pace of economic transformation. Of course, not everyone buys this explanation. Critics argue that Malema is deliberately using inflammatory language to incite racial divisions and gain political mileage. They point to the fact that South Africa is a tinderbox of social and economic tensions, and that such rhetoric could easily lead to violence. Section 5. A Continent Divided. Reactions to Malema's rhetoric. Malema's words didn't just spark outrage in South Africa, they reverberated across the continent. Across Africa, people debated the merits of his rhetoric. Many, particularly younger generations, saw a fearless leader who wasn't afraid to speak truth to power, a man who called out the hypocrisy of the West while demanding economic justice for his people. Social media, as always, became a battleground of opinions. Hashtags like Malema Challenge and I Stand with Malema trended across the continent. People shared their experiences of economic inequality, drawing parallels between South Africa's situation and their own struggles against neocolonialism and exploitation. However, not everyone was on board with Malema's fiery rhetoric. Some saw it as a dangerous and divisive tactic, a throwback to a time when violence was seen as the only solution. They argued that true progress could only be achieved through dialogue and reconciliation, not inflammatory chants. Section 6. Musk's call to action, sanctions, and international condemnation. Musk's call for sanctions against Malema was like throwing gasoline on an already raging fire. It immediately drew condemnation from many quarters. The South African government, while acknowledging the sensitivity of the issue, defended Malema's right to free speech and accused Musk of meddling in their internal affairs. Human rights groups, while generally critical of Malema's rhetoric, also expressed concern about the chilling effect that sanctions could have on free speech. They argued that such a move would set a dangerous precedent, potentially silencing dissent and criticism across the globe. The call for sanctions also sparked a debate about the role of social media companies in policing online speech. Some argued that Musk, as the head of a powerful platform like X, had a responsibility to prevent the spread of hate speech. Others, however, defended his right to express his opinion, arguing that it was not his place to censor political discourse. Section 7. The price of dissent, economic and diplomatic fallout for South Africa. While the South African government tried to downplay the impact of Musk's tweets, the economic and diplomatic fallout was difficult to ignore. The value of the South African rand took a dip in international markets, reflecting investor nervousness about the country's stability. The controversy also put a strain on South Africa's relationship with the United States. The U.S. government, already critical of South Africa's stance on land expropriation, expressed concern about the government's perceived inaction on hate speech. The situation was further complicated by the U.S.'s recent decision to suspend financial aid to South Africa over concerns about its land reform policies. The controversy highlighted the delicate balancing act that South Africa faces on the global stage. As a fledgling democracy still grappling with the legacy of its past, it needs to attract foreign investment and maintain strong relationships with its international partners. However, it also needs to address the legitimate grievances of its citizens, many of whom feel that the promises of equality and economic justice have yet to be fulfilled. Section 8. A legacy redefined, the global perception of Musk and Malema. The controversy had a significant impact on the global perception of both Elon Musk and Julius Malema. Musk, once hailed as a visionary entrepreneur, faced criticism for his perceived lack of understanding of complex historical and political issues. His tweets, some argued, revealed a blind spot when it came to issues of race and colonialism. Malema, on the other hand, saw his international profile rise. His willingness to challenge powerful figures like Musk, coupled with his fiery rhetoric, resonated with those who view the West with suspicion. He was portrayed by some as a modern-day freedom fighter, standing up to neocolonialism and demanding economic justice for the global South. The controversy also highlighted the growing divide between the global North and the global South. Musk's tweets, seen by some as a form of digital colonialism, sparked anger and resentment in many parts of the developing world. Malema, in this context, became a symbol of resistance against Western hegemony and double standards. Section 9. A conversation unfinished. Bridging the divide. The heated exchange between Musk and Malema, while unsettling, brought to the fore a conversation that has been simmering for far too long. A conversation about race, inequality, and the legacy of colonialism. It highlighted the deep divisions that still exist between those who benefit from the current global order and those who continue to bear the brunt of its injustices. The controversy also underscored the power and peril of social media in our increasingly interconnected world. While platforms like X can be powerful tools for amplifying marginalized voices and holding the powerful accountable, they can also be used to spread misinformation, inflame tensions, and deepen existing divides. Moving forward, it is imperative that we engage in nuanced and respectful dialogue about these complex issues. We need to listen to each other, acknowledge our shared history, and work together to create a more just and equitable world. The future of our planet depends on our ability to bridge the divides that separate us and build a future where everyone has the opportunity to thrive.